The next rose up for you today is a shrub rose, bred and introduced by David Austin Roses in 2003. And very much like Dame Judi Dench, Charles Darwin is as wide as he is tall. He's a lovely rose producing these absolutely stunning custard yellow blooms. And I'm going to say custard because for me it doesn't have any notes of gold in this at all. It is a true yellow rose. Reaching around 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, it will also reach about 3.5 to 4.5 feet wide. So very much like Dame Judi Dench, it is as wide as it is tall. As a result, you have this lovely platformed effect across the top of the plant, this sort of shelf of blooms all laid out for you to view, which is really very, very pleasant. Because the plant produces quite large flowers, it does in its first couple of years look a bit floppy and a little bit untidy, just while it gets itself established and produces enough woody or twiggy growth to really support these flowers, which are really quite large. Each one reaching something in excess of about 3.5 to 4 inches across. They're very, very deeply cupped up the side. So if you are lucky enough already to have laid your hands on Bring Me Sunshine or Roald Dahl, you're talking about a flower very much similar in shape with that lovely deep cupping around the outside, framing the bloom, and then a lovely quartet, 4 equal sections in the center of the flower, giving you that lovely ruffled look on the petals. It has a really lovely matte green foliage, which is around mid in colour, which together with that custard yellow really does set the flowers off beautifully. Charles Darwin is a really hard-working rose and is going to start flowering for you fairly late on in the season. Everything's been flowering for around 2 or 3 weeks now, and Charles Darwin has only just joined the show here in late June, but he's going to flower all the way through the year now. It's a repeat flowering rose and will produce a smattering of blooms in fairly large numbers all the way through to the back end of September and into October. The actual blooms themselves, I say this lovely, really lovely custard yellow colour, quartetted in the centre. You can see the 4 quarters in the centre there, all ruffled together, has a really beautiful fragrance. It's really clean. It smells of green tea and fresh lemons. There's none of that really insipid acid smell to the lemons. It's very, very fresh and very, very clean, and it develops quite nicely over time. The buds normally have a bit of a peach streak, already peachy streak up the outsides, a little bit of orange there as well. And as the season develops and it moves forward into a warmer period during the summer and those nighttime temperatures really start to rise, that colouring on the outside of the bud will completely disappear and you'll be left with the pure yellow custard blooms. I would say that Charles Darwin does suffer with a little bit of black spot. You can see just on this leaf here a mark already starting to appear because these blooms are really quite large and it is going to be working really very hard all the way through the year. I think because of its size it lacks a little bit of vigour, but please don't let that put you off. I like with Vanessa Bell, I'm going to try giving this one a really good liquid feed towards the end of its first flush, and that for Charles Darwin is going to be something in the region of about the 3rd or 4th week of July. It might take a little bit of a rest around that time, and I'm going to give it a really good liquid feed and focus on my watering to make sure that I can fend off this little bit of black spot that's starting to set in. But please don't let that put you off because Charles Darwin is a really stunning rose, really good for planting en masse if you wanted to, or also another one that if you wanted to create a low divisional hedge between, for instance, yourself, your front garden and your next door's front garden. It is really lovely. I say not reaching too much height, around 4 to 4.5 feet, but that width and size on the plant giving you that lovely shelf of custard yellow blooms over the top. This is Charles Darwin from David Austin Roses, a really enchanting rose, which I really like. It has a fantastic fragrance, producing really large individual blooms which are fantastic for cutting, although they don't last in a vase particularly long, maybe 2 or 3 days, but it really is worth cutting and bringing to the house. You can see in the light in here that really is very, very pleasant. And if you want to compare it against something else, if you're lucky enough to already have Bring Me Sunshine or Charlotte or maybe Roald Dahl, a very similar shape in its form with the actual flower there, but this is Charles Darwin and well worth the look if you love these strong dark primary colours.